Welcome, everybody. Today we're having a session on crafting a standout CV. Many of you may know me already, some of you may not. So my name is Anna, and I am an accredited career coach and a mentor, and I'm based in Ireland. So enough about me. Today is about creating a CV that actually gets attention for the right reasons. Okay. So we all know in the age of AI and ChatGPT and everything, we might have some rough idea how it should look like, but technically, let's look at it from a perspective of employers and what actually they're looking for specifically. So before we begin, I'm just going to introduce myself. As I said, I am a coach and a mentor. I specialize specifically in career transitions. And I really care that my clients pivot with clarity and confidence. I have made 3 career shifts myself, from supply chain through working in NGOs to actually doing coaching and opening my own coaching practice. I've helped over 100 professionals across Ireland, EU, and the US. So you're in safe hands. And if you've been struggling to get interviews, if you've been struggling identifying the right jobs, you're in the right place. All right. So this session is specifically handy for you if you've been applying for jobs, but hearing little or maybe nothing even back, or you might be struggling to explain your value clearly on paper. Okay. A lot of people say to me that, Anna, like, if I only could get to an interview, I would have gotten the job, but it's just to get through that first stage. So if you struggle with that, you're in the right place. Also, if you're changing careers, industries, or maybe you're returning after a gap, and maybe you've been on a maternity leave, this is also a good place to start off, to refresh your CV, to get your mind back into thinking, okay, how do I present myself to the best of my possibility? And also, if you've been struggling to maybe translate your value into the right coherent story. A lot of clients that I work with, they might be, concerned about their skills gaps, or they might be concerned about, having maybe too many roles on their CV and not knowing how to clearly articulate their value. So if you fit into any of those categories, I am very excited to speak to you today. And what you can expect is, to actually learn, what recruiters are actually looking for in a CV and how to make it focused and strategic. Again, as I said, in the age of AI, there's a lot of, ChatGPT and things like that going on, and you're being thrown different perspectives, different advice for one single document, and that's a lot to process. So today I'm trying to make it as simple for you as possible and as memorable for you as possible. So then when you actually get into that stage of, okay, I need to focus on my CV now, you know exactly what you're doing and how you're doing that for. Okay. So we will also look into how we could tailor your CV without rewriting it from scratch every single time, which is very important because we can get so tired of it. And of course, then, what we're going to learn what creates clarity, credibility, and confidence on paper. Okay, so again, very warm welcome from me to everybody who is here. And if you have any questions or if you have any concerns, any comments maybe throughout, feel free to leave a comment below. Feel free to ask questions, and I will try to answer them after I'm finished with the session. If you are not satisfied with the amount of the answer, or maybe you're looking for something different or something specific, you can also book a call with me afterwards if you're still struggling with your career or with your CV, or if you'd like to have more support in general. Okay, so feel free to leave any comments, ask questions. This is what the session is for. Okay, so let's get started with a question. What is a CV exactly? What is it? In short, it's your positioning document. Okay. And its job is to make a recruiter quickly understand those four things. So, are you relevant to the role? Are you good at what you do? Is there a career logic and consistency across the story that you've been telling with your CV? And what has been your scope or seniority, based on your CV? Now, having said that, CV is only your positioning document, but this is not your whole professional presence. Your professional presence consists of many touch points across the way. So it could be your LinkedIn profile, it could be your CV document. So that's one. Okay, we're covering one aspect of it today. But there is also the way, how you present yourself in interviews, and also, how you interact inside and outside of work. Okay, so this is important. Your professional presence is not only CV, it's a part of it. Okay, but then you might ask me, but Anna, hey, like how how do I actually ensure it positions me well? Well, to ensure that you are staying relevant to the role, specify your intent and name your relevant abilities and experience. To prove that you are good at what you do, try to come up with as much evidence of your impact as possible. Okay, so don't just describe your responsibilities. And to bring this career logic into your CV, ask yourself this one question: does your story make sense? If it doesn't, like if you feel unsure, if you don't feel confident about how your career has been going so far, this might be your first stumbling block into getting your clear CV. Okay, because if you can't answer that question yourself, how are we supposed to make somebody else feel the same way? Okay, and your scope or seniority. So basically, they're trying to understand, are you capable of handling the job in essence? Okay, so these four questions are so important to position yourself clearly on your CV. But then, sure, people might ask me, but I've been doing all this. I still don't get interviews, I still get rejections. So there is a couple of things that people that are good at what they do still get overlooked. And why is that? It's most likely one of the below things, which is, if you might provide too much information. So let's say if the recruiter or HR manager needs to look for the information unnecessarily, okay, or if you have no clear direction, if there's no clear intention towards the job application, okay. You're using too generic language. Maybe it sounds like ChatGPT generated document. It doesn't sound like you. It's not authentic, and it basically blends with every single CV that's done the same thing. Okay, your responsibilities might be listed instead of the actual impact, which in turn, doesn't create any credibility whatsoever. It might seem almost like a spillover of different buzzwords that have no meaning. Okay. So it's important to stay credible with your CV. And if you're trying to appeal to everyone, you're essentially appealing to no one. The more specific you get, and I'll talk about it later as well, the better result you'll get for a specific type of roles. And also, if your CV is written from your own perspective rather than from your employers or from hiring managers, you might be shooting yourself in the knee a little bit. So how do we change it? Try to, not let anybody who's reading your CV look for the relevant information, okay? So what I mean by that, if a role requires 10 specific skills, put them out there, put them first. Get rid of all the buzzwords and junk words that don't really add any value, or they're nice to have, but they don't really bring the point across that you are the best and the best person for the role. Okay, and also, don't let them guess what you want. So bring that clear intention. Specify your direction. Why are you applying for this role? Are you applying for this specific industry for a reason? These are the good questions to ask yourself. And again, as I said, don't use this generic spillover language buzzwords, which doesn't really make sense, because these days anybody can type into Google or ChatGPT, okay, so what are the top skills needed for a role, and then put them on their CV. But what really makes a difference is how you make yourself credible. So there's a difference between saying I am a hard worker versus I have a proven track record of improving efficiency by 20%, let's say. Huge difference, same meaning. So we're trying to make sure that we stay as credible as possible, and we do that with showing off our impact. And, being specific enough to fit a certain job's criteria is the way to go these days. You cannot appeal to everyone. You cannot be both a dancer, a singer, and a carpenter. It's just not possible to be a master of all. Okay, so if you can do bits and pieces, try to focus on the thing that you do best. Try to look into what is your unique value proposition and go with that. And of course, try to not write a CV from your perspective. So what do you think is cool? What do you think is fantastic for them to see? But put yourself into someone else's shoes. If you were the employer who was hiring for this specific position, what would you like the person applying to be? What would you like them to be able to do? What would you require from them? What would stand out to you? Change the perspective. Huge difference. And good exercise for this is, if you had a broken boiler in your own house, okay, would you choose just some handyman that can do bits and pieces around the house, maybe even boilers? Or B, would you call for a certified plumber specializing in boiler repairs because you want to take a shower today? And yes, most people would choose option B. And this is exactly what we need to do with our CV. We want to be specific enough to solve a specific type of problem, that we want to be a specific type of a person that employer is looking essentially to employ. And to be fair, even Netflix doesn't recommend everything at once. And surely there's a reason for it. So I always say, try to be as specific and as relevant as possible. And if I was to tell you, if your CV should do one job, it would be that it should reveal a crystal clear direction. So your check-in for today would be to say, okay, do I explicitly show with my CV what role am I actually targeting? Do I show a clear intention? Second, do I know what the job requires? And do I essentially show that with my CV, with the skills and credibility put out there with the impact? And three, where your experience already overlaps and where it doesn't. So do you know what are your skills gaps? Do you just shove them under the carpet, or do you actively work on them? Do you specify that you're currently working on them? If there's no gaps, do you explicitly show how your experience is directly relevant to the role? So in essence, your CV should do those three things straight away. And all those things show that you have a clear direction, that you know what you're targeting, you know what the job requires, and you know exactly that you're the right fit for the role. And a pro tip for myself, if you already have a clear direction, a clear set of jobs that you'd like to apply for, try to stick to 2 to 3 types of jobs maximum. And then create 2 to 3 base CVs answering those previous 3 questions. So I might just go back for you to take note of them. So what role are you actually targeting, what the role requires, and how your experience already overlaps and where it doesn't, and how you're addressing it. Okay? Because if you do that, From then on, the changes in your CV will be quite minor, reflecting slightly different job descriptions. So having 2 to 3 base CVs is exactly what is needed to make sure that you don't spend hours rewriting every single CV over time. So I've just got a question there. Is it a good idea to have a master CV? So that's what I'm talking about. So master CV, 2, 3 master CVs, typically for the 2 to 3 types of roles that you have identified that are best for yourself, and then you can slightly tailor them for the specific job titles. So then the tailoring is not like a hurdle that you have to focus on for a couple of hours a day, but really having those 2 to 3 base CVs with different angles for those different positions would be a way to go. So hopefully that answered your question. And a self audit for yourself, questions that are good to be asked. Okay, so does my CV position me clearly? Does it sound like me at my strongest? Is it achievement focused? Could a recruiter understand my value in under 30 seconds? So we're talking now about the first third of your CV. Am I communicating confidence and direction, or is it just based off uncertainty? So a lot of CVs that I've been reviewing recently, even at the recent careers event, a lot of people focus on explaining themselves rather than choosing themselves and putting themselves forward. So it's really about taking a stand and saying, here is what I bring to the table. I am confident about my intention and direction. Here are the skills that I've built over the years. Great to give an even amount of the years that you have with certain skills and show the impact of the work that you've done. So it's not only about showing them, yes, I have relevant experience, but showing them, hey, I'm actually good at what I do. This is the essence of it. And the core 6 sections of a strong CV are, obviously your name and contact details, and a headline or a professional title as you like. So basically answering the question, who are you professionally? Who are they hiring? Third, your personal profile, about me section, professional summary, whatever you want to call it. But again, please avoid generic buzzwords or personal traits with no evidence. The more evidence you give, the better. Okay. And again, listing your relevant skills. And why they're relevant is put in bold is because, again, it's the most important part of the CV. Don't let your employer, the hiring manager, guess whether or not you are relevant for the job. If you have 25 skills listed and only 10 of them are relevant to the job, cut out the noise, okay? Make it pop up, make it visible to the other person that you are the right fit. Professional experience, of course, try to go away from what you did and go more with the direction of what changed because of you. Okay, so what impact did you have in that specific role or in that company? Of course, your education and qualifications, achievements or projects, if applicable, but it's very good for credibility building, and interests, if of course the space allows. So your headline is basically ideally the name of the job that you're applying for, your expertise or field, your contact details. I say it over and over again, please try to stay away from sharing your address because you can shoot yourself in the knee with that one if you're applying for a job that is maybe more further away. Phone, email, and LinkedIn is just fine. When it comes to about me section, professional summary, whatever you'd like to call it, okay, it's great to state the number of years of experience you have for a certain role or industry that you're interested in, and name at least 3 relevant skills that you've gained across the years, and ideally 1 key achievement related to the role. So remember, we're not only trying to make sure that they know we're experienced, but we're trying to make sure that they know we're good at what we do. And how do we do it? We show it with our achievements and our impact. The skills and strengths section is also very important. So we're trying to put the most relevant skills first, add the years of experience to build credibility. It's not buzzwords anymore, it's credibility building. Name both technical and soft skills that match the role, okay? And explain your experience or impact in 1 to 2 sentences, okay? So don't just name communication skills. Explain in 1 sentence how did you actually do it, okay? And the experience section then, as with everything, it's all about relevance. So put the most relevant tasks to the job description first, and then describe how did you do the tasks. So feel free to talk about your methodology, tools, tech, skills, whatever you use to do a task. But most importantly, name the result or the aim if the result is not available. Quantify where possible. If you don't know the exact number, it's okay to give an average. It's okay to say more than half or things like that. The more scope you talk about, the better. If you don't have a result, if you don't have a name, well, can you talk about the scope? How many people have you worked with? How many projects? How big were the projects? It all counts. And the education section, so it's very important to name the level of your education to stand out. If you have graduated over 15, 20 years ago, you might as well stay away from using the dates unless you're applying for very senior roles. And the reason is being we're trying to get rid of, the things that are going on with ageism now, like trying to avoid the unnecessary judgment, if possible, if you've graduated a while back. Achievements are something that I still see people not adding to their CV, but this really highlights your value and impact again. So again, that builds up on your credibility. So again, quantify where possible. And interests, not necessarily, but of course you can add them if you still have the space. Title in 1 sentence explanation is more than enough. Referees, always available on request. You can skip saying that altogether if lacking space, only add it in if you still have space. Something that is not mentioned here, if you are in EU or specifically in Ireland, try to stay within the 2 pages limit. Okay. So we can go to formatting. So make sure that the formatting is clear, easy to read, and save your space. So the white space on the CV is actually your friend because that helps the reader to understand your value clearly. Try to cut out as much noise as possible and focus on the value that you bring. Now, having said that, because of the ATS systems, we want to make sure that it's also, very much readable, very much attainable for the hiring manager and the recruiter. So I always say, lead with the value and leave the kind of aesthetics behind. So what I mean by that, try to focus on being as simple as possible. And if that means that your CV looks a little bit boring, but it's accessible to the ATS systems, so be it. So you can just see an example of a CV here. It's just an example of a CV, but basically what we can see here is that there is no overcrowding with the contact information. Phone, email, LinkedIn is enough. We have a clear professional title. We already know how experienced the person is. Again, repeated here. We have clear skills named here. We have an intention named in the actual statement here, which is great. And we're also naming the industry. So the employer should easily understand, okay, is this person qualified or experienced to do the job? Is this person good at what they do? Have they gained the relevant skills? And third, do they have the good intention? Are they actually applying for the role that we have available? Okay. And are they even interested in our industry? So these are the things that I'll be questioning. Also, your skills are your credibility building. So as you can see, you have the title of the skill, number of years of experience, and then a brief description with impact if possible. Okay. I know it's not always possible to add your impact, but if possible, always try to slide it in. Professional experience, again, focusing on impact, focusing on job titles rather than companies. Just city name is fine. Education level, name the level of your educational attainment. Keep the dates if they're, very close by, and please don't forget about the key achievements. So try to focus on the impact. Again, look for the process and look for the relevance to the role. Choose the achievements that best qualify you to the role and build the credibility most for yourself. Interest, fine and nice to have. As I always say, if it's something that is quite relevant to the role, I'd put it up first, probably. Something that I would also mention when it comes to ATS systems, try to not use any kind of visuals or photos or even tables or dividing pages. So keep everything as simple as possible in order for the ATS systems to be able to read. Note on the ATS systems, not every single one works the same. So I know some ATS systems would have some things readable, some would not be readable. So I always say try to go the safest route and try to keep things as simple as possible. As much as there's coherence when it comes to the layout, we should be absolutely fine. One thing that is missing, I'm not sure whether most of you realize it or not so far by looking at the CV and the advice that I've shared before. The first paragraph, so the About Me section, right? It doesn't have a quantified impact. It doesn't have a quantified achievement. And this is something that would bring up the credibility of this person up, because that would show, okay, they're not only qualified, they don't only have the skills, but it could also have the impact. So essentially I say, okay, they're not only qualified, but they're actually good at what they do. And this is what we want to do. We want to hire a person who would be good at what they do, having the skills that we require them to have. Okay. And the action planning for you maybe for today is if you could write down 2 small actions that you can take this week to improve your CV. And question for the room as well, where do you think you'll struggle the most? I know there's some comments as well and questions, so I'll go over them in a second. But try to take at least 2 small actions where you could improve your CV today, this week, and just get the ball rolling, okay? And as I always say, your career direction is your first starting point. And to be honest, what we focus on here was the second step of the process that I go with my clients of clear positioning, which is being a CV outside of LinkedIn, interview prep, and all that. So I always say, if you don't have a clear self-awareness and confidence and clear direction for your career, it might be quite harder for you to kind of position yourself well for the next role, okay? And if you're still unsure if you're on the right track or struggling with direction or your positioning, feel free to book a free 30-minute consultation with me. You can scan the QR code on the screen, or you can go onto my website, or you can even reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, whatever suits you better. The point is, if you're struggling, if you feel like it's been going too hard for you, then it probably shouldn't be that hard. And feel free to book a free session and see how support could look like for you and for me to understand your situation a little bit better, because I know today we only have 30 minutes and we only have not even 2 minutes left. So if you have any more questions, if you like more support, you're more than welcome to talk to me one-on-one, and we can take it from there. And I know there is one question as well that I haven't answered there when it comes to career gaps in your CV. So I always say, try to understand it from the employer's perspective. In today's job market, a career gap of less than 6 months is not a career gap. So I wouldn't even be worrying about 6 months gaps. Anything above 6 months, I would try to address on the CV because it would be visible anyway. So try to not name it career gap, but actually try to explain how you developed your value, how you developed your skills throughout that time. Was it professional development? Was it a personal exploration? Was it traveling? What was it related to? Even if you cared for a loved one, it's worth mentioning, okay? But by no means you should feel required to answer this question if asked. only do so if you feel comfortable with it. I'd be more than happy to explain that in more detail because we're lacking time as of today. So if you have some further questions, completely feel free to reach out to me, Donna, and we can take it from there, okay? But try to name it as part of your experience, your gap. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I hope it was helpful. And look, feel free to contact me if you have any more questions. It was great to have you here today, and good luck with your CVs, okay?